So today is Monday, October 14th, 2019. We're here for the policy committee meeting. We have everyone here. So we can go through, are there any announcements or communications?
There are not.
We have minutes from our last meeting in September, so if there's any modifications to those minutes, please get them to Brooke, because they'll be at the next legislative meeting. So with that, we can go into the second reading policies that we have on the list for today, as well as administrative regulations. So starting at the top, we can look at 309. Is there any changes to 309 from last month?
I don't have anything for 309.
Okay. If we don't have any changes to 309, then we can put that forward. All right, so next is policy 100, our comprehensive plan, and there's also the administrative regulation.
Some non-substantive changes, the email exchanges we were having about policy, I put the purpose statement of authority. There's no new information in the policy, it's just, I just rearranged some of the verbiage, and I have some grammatical things that I'll share with Brooke afterwards.
Great. Mark, are there any changes to the policy of 100?
Just double checking the little changes.
And just for the record, there was an email exchange between Dr. Yanni and Mr. Sirota about making sure that we have all of our policies in a similar format from one another. So having the same sections, things like that. There was no other great discussion.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
no, it's just,
It was just a matter of
Just
looking
format.
at,
So
formatting
the
the
only thing I
process.
have was, it's a comment from last time too. So under, in the policy, under guidelines, and paragraph says, the name of this committee shall be a standing committee duly appointed by the board. So I just want to make sure we mean standing committee. This doesn't exist only once in a while when we need to redo the document. This is a standing committee that lives forever.
In there for a sentence in the second paragraph.
I think, Ken, you told me last time, if I remember correctly, that that is in code, that's code, it's a standing committee.
yeah.
Oh, sorry.
So,
Okay.
It feels a little weird to have that there because we don't, that committee doesn't have a function once the plan is adopted, but.
yeah, that's the,
Right. Right,
Yeah.
then we can get everybody back.
Okay.
Good.
All right. So then we can look at the AR, which is a new AR.
So for the AR, what I did was I listed out the steps of the comprehensive planning process, but then, more importantly, the strategic action planning process that we went through. I wrote those steps out just so that we have them memorialized, because I think unless anyone says differently, I think it was a pretty valuable process that we went through to create goals and action steps.
So just a minor thing, the second bullet under the process at the bottom is appointed.
Are you on the AR
Yeah.
under strategic action?
Second bullet, there's the verb tense.
Okay. Anything else?
No.
All right, so with that, we will have the policy for second reading and do approval of the AR. Okay, then we're to policy 103.
103, I added just a purpose statement the purpose of this policy is to ensure that equitable opportunities are provided for all students, and I added a definition of educational equity. Everything else, I didn't have anything else that needed to be changed. Adding a definition, Ken, isn't substantive enough that I has to go back to a first reading with it.
I don't think it is, but I think people are going to be,
Conceptually, I would say it could be, because, the definition
Sure.
could materially end up
Sure.
affecting the point of the policy, but I don't think in this case it does.
I didn't have anything else on the policy.
Okay. All right, so that's one of three for second reading. So now we'll look at, it's listed at 106.1.
So this is equitable scheduling and course offerings for students. A couple things, and I'll try to be as specific as possible. I think the second paragraph that starts, "The district is committed to the success of every student," really is the purpose statement. And that first paragraph is really the authority statement.
Agreed. So we can just switch those on.
And then,
I don't know that that's really an authority statement either.
you can just move your, if the district is committed, just move it ahead of the other way.
Yeah, just swap
You
that.
just swap them out.
Yeah, we just swap
Swap
those two
them out.
paragraphs. and you can go.
that's what,
Yeah, you don't need an authority.
We just don't have, we won't have an authority section here.
just point of clarification, do we want those sections in all policies?
That's my, we can certainly discuss it. That's my preference, just because then you can always know that section 4 is the meat,
Sure.
And it's a placeholder so that you don't tend to drift if later it gets modified. It's there already, and you can figure out which section you want to put it in. But, it's not,
Well, it is, I mean, the board directs at the district, so that's what gives the superintendent.
That's the authority.
Yeah, I think.
well, that would be a delegated, that's a delegation of responsibility.
Well, no.
Or it's a statement of policy. It's really a statement of policy. So it is. But it's kind of fuzzy. It's just provide equitable opportunities this time.
What would be a statement of authority?
And authority is, where does the authority come from for this policy? And why do we have the authority to say this?
Well,
And in this
then
case,
I'll go back
I
to
don't think we need one.
moving that paragraph to the first and just keeping it under purpose.
Yeah, I think that's fine, yeah.
That's
Swap the two,
Okay.
swap the first two
Is
paragraphs.
that right?
Guidelines, the superintendent or designee shall be responsible, and then insert for the implementation of this policy, because this, and then, because we have an AR to go along with this.
Yeah.
That's fine.
All right, I'm good with that. Do we have anything else on the policy? Okay, so then look at the AR.
And I thought to renumber it 106, does that
Yeah,
make sense
because we
to
don't have
everyone?
anything else in the one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. Well, there was a repeal. That was the thing. 'cause we
Right,
had
there was
the-
a- yes,
We
there was a
had
repeal,
the guides
sorry.
for planned instruction,
Right,
so we're
that's-
repealing that, so.
Yep.
So I had some comments on these from last time, I just want to review and see if we
The language in this AR is connected to another process that the district just wrapped up.
And we discussed this AR at the last policy committee meeting as well.
You're repeating some stuff that's in the policy, or are you taking that stuff out of the policy?
No,
About
we're
elementary
repeating some
school
stuff.
and,
We're repeating some stuff.
What's being included?
well, we
Stuff
say
that's under the
elementary schools are going to
guidelines.
be grouped heterogeneous, and we said that in policy too.
Yeah, it's under the, but it gives us something to say from that.
And the same thing in secondary.
Yeah, because we don't really break out any more information in the elementary.
That's where I struggle a little bit, sometimes when we look at policy and AR, because sometimes it feels redundant, sometimes, but I don't think in this case it hurts being redundant.
It's not that it hurts now, that's the kind of thing that hurts later.
Well,
But, because, when you try to change it, you fail to change it in both places, you didn't notice.
Well, I would hope if we're looking at policies, we're also looking at the ARs at the same time.
and because the policy, it requires, because having it in the policy makes it more of a conscious change by a future board,
Yeah.
as opposed to just a routine approval of an AR.
Yeah.
Because if this is going to change, it really needs to be the board that changes it, given the circumstances.
Or can one be, just need to add the word for,
So are you suggesting that we put everything that's in the AR?
shall be responsible?
No, no,
Shall be
Just
responsible
leave
for
what's
the
currently in the
schedule.
policy.
What you've done is fine.
One,
1D, the principal designated responsible for scheduling, so we need the word for in there. Or to schedule or for scheduling. That's all.
four schedule, okay, got it.
Very,
I just couldn't find it. at
It's
first.
on the screen.
It's in the AR.
1B and AR.
Sorry.
Just missing the word for.
Yeah,
oh,
yeah,
Come on.
I'll do it right now.
Yes, Stephen, in 2B, instead of saying that this is shall eliminate, you want the AR to be consistent. Once we eliminate it, you don't want that statement in there, so I think you just need to rewrite it somehow. That says,
2B?
there wouldn't be, rather than saying.
So we talked about, this should be.
Yeah.
Oh, it does say in the, right, it's just the wording at the top now. So you change the bullets to be what shall be offered instead of what will be removed. But yeah, instead of saying shall eliminate, the course offering shall be.
You're correct, yeah.
Yeah.
Something to that effect, not that we shall eliminate.
Taking away
Or it says the
words.
district shall eliminate the lowest level tracks. Right. You could just say, I understand.
you can't really. It's just been.
We need to keep it the way it is, yeah.
Okay.
So you want it to be worded specifically that way.
Please.
And once it's eliminated, you still want that language in there.
Do we want to put a date at the lowest level track as of whatever school year that was?
But there shall not be a lowest level track.
The district shall
Shall not
not
be
be
able to track.
according to the following schedule. And then it talks about 1920,
Yeah.
2021, 21-22.
Right.
I
I
understand.
mean, what are you saying? You're worried about, like, there's always going to be a lowest level. It's just that we're talking about the lowest level that was effective last year, let's say.
No, I'm just saying, once it's said and done,
Right.
it's not shall eliminate, it should.
Yeah, we should have eliminated. We
Eliminate.
don't even need to say it anymore.
Right, but I
Oh, the
think
district has eliminated the, right, okay. Okay.
Right, but I think because
understand.
this is laying out actions that are supposed to take place over
In
the
the
next
future.
couple of years.
Okay.
But this can be updated in a couple of years from
Yeah.
now, once it's been done, then we can come back and update the language so
Right.
it's the proper tense.
What I'll do, because I'm tracking when we're doing policies, so what I'll do is, we'll have this, I'll note that in school year 23-24, this can come back around.
Right. Actually, probably visit it in 21-22 to make it effective in 22-23.
Right.
Say that again?
We should visit this in 21-22 to make it effective in 22-23. The new.
Yes, correct.
Correct.
this is AR.
This is the AR, right. Alright. So are we good with the rest of that?
This is first or second?
This is the AR, so it only takes one, but this is second for the policy.
Okay, so the policy second, so this will go.
This will be approved, yeah, this is approval for now. Okay, so then we're at,
And so Steve, algebra 1 does not have multiple levels now?
Not at ninth grade.
Okay.
yeah, we did that this year. Okay. All right, so if we're good with what will be called 106, we're up to 109.
So I know we've been going through it quite a bit, but I have a few concerns about this policy. Let me explain why. So I think we have to limit the board's approval to textbooks, because if we don't, we're including books, supplementary titles, multimedia materials, maps, library books, software, and instructional material.
And it's a problem because,
Well, it's a problem because there's an art and science to teaching. So yes, there's an approved textbook. We don't want teachers to stick to that one textbook.
Right.
So this would mean they can't bring in any other material unless it's board approved.
so we had something in here, that allowed for supplemental materials.
If
So
I
what should the process be? I mean, say a teacher wants to bring in something, do they go to their principal, do they go to, I'm not saying they would need board approval, right? I'm just trying to,
Right.
or do they need to go through anybody at all?
Typically, at the secondary level, they go through their curriculum supervisor. At the elementary level, it's usually through the supervisor of reading, now the supervisor of elementary. The reason I'm bringing this up, if I read this literally, this policy could be used to prevent anything other than what's board approved being brought in their classrooms.
But that's why we said the superintendent shall be responsible for election recommendation and maintenance. We don't really, this doesn't require the board to approve anything, it just says it requires the board to pay for it.
Okay.
No adoption or change of material shall be made by the superintendent without prior approval.
Right, second sentence.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
right,
the-
That's the guy.
Yeah.
Right, that's my concern. I think when we're talking about textbooks for courses,
Mhm.
textbooks have to come through, like they go through a cycle, they go through a review process, they get approved by.
Well, and they have to be approved by the board according to their school code.
Right,
So
yes.
you need materials changed to textbooks
Yes.
in both places.
So the reason not to do that, I'm just trying to think it out loud here. The reason not to do that is because, for the reason that boards are supposed to approve textbooks, that I think, anyway, boards are supposed to approve textbooks in the first place, which is to ensure that they're consistent with the values of the community. And that's kind of shorthand, but I think you got where I'm going.
Yeah, and things have changed so much from the time that it used to be just a textbook, and now we're talking about
Yeah.
a bunch of different things that people
So
bring in.
if we do limit it only to textbooks, then we've basically given away, the board has given away the authority to
Regulate everything else.
regulate the content. So I think there's a difficult balance to be struck.
So, right, so I'm just trying to think if we can have a more encompassing term without having to go down to everything. It's like if we find out something's happening, being able to say, no, you can't do that, without having to get pre-approval for things. Like you
Yeah,
find out someone's
right.
reading some book that's like,
Sure.
I'm okay with an after-the-fact kind of mechanism.
Yeah.
Maybe it already exists somewhere in some other policy that we
I don't know.
don't.
Well, I think, generally what happens when we write new curriculum, and then we adopt resources for it, we usually say, okay, this is the textbook that we're going to adopt, and then here's all the other stuff that we're going to use to supplement the textbook. And typically, because we write common assessments, they are typically used commonly across teachers now. I just don't want someone to be able to read that. I don't want to sit in board meetings where we're saying,
Right,
like, where we're having to defend.
Yeah, I agree. I mean,
Yeah.
Right.
we shouldn't, I don't think any of us want that.
right. We don't want to be limited to literally just the textbook. I think we want to make sure that like people are adopting, I don't know if you want to call it curriculum or program or whatever it is, but or.
Resource materials and instruction supplies.
Right, but that's the same thing, but at the same time, you don't want to have to go in and approve every single one ahead of time. It's like, this is, the textbook essentially speaks to what we want to be taught. There's going to be things that should complement and, you know, go beyond the textbook, that don't contradict. Maybe that's not, I mean, you don't want things that contradict it.
Yeah. I think it's pretty relevant in
How about if we call it-
social studies.
Right.
Right,
How about if we
right,
call it
exactly.
primary course materials? And then that way, primary course materials would be textbook or any other like first, you know, like, so if we're looking at 20th century America, this is the textbook that we're going to use, and these are all of the primary and secondary sources that are going to be used. That would all be considered primary course materials.
Right.
So we would say no adoption or change of textbooks
Mhm.
or other primary course materials shall be made. That makes it clear that the other primary course material is what stands in
Right.
place of a textbook.
Right.
And then that would prevent, not that I'm saying this happens, but a teacher from going rogue to say, I'm not going to use that textbook, I'm not going to use
Right,
any of these materials, I'm going to use something else
instead.
that's contrary.
Right, that's contrary to it.
But Ken, again, I keep thinking about a social studies teacher bringing in some articles that they read about impeachment. And let's, as a class, let's talk about impeachment history. You know, do they need prior approval to bring that in?
From anybody, regardless
Yeah.
of, right, I mean, that's the thing, is we obviously shouldn't be here.
The guidance that we provided staff, particularly in the political climate that we're in, if you're going to have kids read an article that has one point of view, make sure that you balance it with another point of view. That's the guidance we've given.
There is also, you know, the whole academic freedom section in the contract.
Yeah.
You have to be careful.
Right.
Let me just read it again, see if I think that primary course material change covers it. So you have a definition of primary, definition of course. And then
You want a definition of textbook or other primary.
Yeah, the primary source
so
material.
then under delegation of responsibility, superintendent shall be responsible for selection, recommendation, and maintenance of all resource materials, or that one is primary?
Primary.
Okay.
Well, then,
And then,
Superintendent or designate? He probably,
Yeah, for example, David,
I was thinking David would.
David, Meredith,
Yeah. But then how does, what's the rest of that sentence? How would it read? Responsible for selection, recommendation.
okay, so I'm thinking that under delegation of responsibility, that first paragraph can stay how it is, all resource materials. But the second paragraph, if you just change materials to primary, in all three sentences, or just the second and third, actually, just the second and third
Section,
sentence. That might be enough.
so saying no adoption or change of primary materials.
Primary
Yeah, primary.
materials.
Without board approval.
Yeah.
And then we can't
And then the-
override the superintendent without two-thirds
Two-thirds.
majority.
That's better.
Yeah,
Ken,
It
this
leaves some
has to be
oversight.
going on across the state in terms of how people are rewriting this policy. I don't know how they're addressing it. Because textbooks are,
I think some
there's so much more than textbooks.
Right, but that doesn't necessarily necessarily mean that people are
Make a policy.
requiring the functional equivalent of textbooks to be board approved, but that just means it's like, fine, that's less we have to approve. Now, I don't know how they feel that way in like the Dover School District, for example, but, that's, the ones I'm familiar with.
I think I would hope that the board is comfortable with the fact that we provide guidance to teachers, like around, like right now, the political climate that we're in. I mean, it's really, a teacher can wind up getting in
I can imagine.
some serious trouble, which is why that proactive communication went out, making sure that it's fair and balanced. Bad choice of
Yeah, especially
Yeah,
the words, but yeah, right,
Make sure that it represents multiple points of view.
right.
And we also directed them to certain resources, right? So, PBS will take New York Times articles and it'll pull an article with an opposing point of view. So teachers don't have to go on a scavenger hunt.
That's nice.
Yeah, that's good research, yeah.
Okay.
Under purpose, the new language right at the very top. Do we mean that supplies are provided appropriately, or that appropriate supplies are provided?
Appropriate supplies are provided.
I read that a couple times, I'm like, that doesn't sound
Sound
right.
right.
Like,
Mhm.
You don't want to provide the minimum.
Right, I know.
You pick them up off the floor.
How about, instead of calling them textbooks, why don't we just call them classroom texts?
Classroom text.
That way, it doesn't have to be, it could be electronic.
Yeah, but it's not all text.
What? The electronic substitute for a textbook is not a text.
It's not the video, for example.
Well, now it's a resource material. That's it.
Why can't the primary thing be a video?
What you're using in lieu of a textbook being a video. A teaching
Some section of the textbook.
Yeah.
Labs.
You see everything's a video, which drives me crazy, but
Do you want the board to approve videos?
I want the board to approve primary course content. I want the board to have the ability to veto, really what I
Right,
want. is
I-
the board
the
to have
veto,
ability to
yeah.
veto primary course content, but,
Right,
Then you have to approve it.
right. But that's the
my
point,
point
it's
is
the
it's okay if
primary,
it's after the fact.
right.
Oh.
If
That's
we
what we'll
find out
find
that, I don't know that I want to get in the way of, I think I want the board to get in the way of rapid approval of course materials in a rapidly changing environment.
You want to have a
Right.
vehicle that if something's brought to the attention.
You
like
can
that-
stop it,
Like
right.
there's a teacher using a science book that is touching too controversial of a topic in an inappropriate way, that the board can have a conversation about it.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get. Exactly. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
We may have to bring this one back.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
oh,
I think you do.
It's
Yeah,
not-
right.
So it will be every,
Well, and if, a real life case of this a couple of years ago was Central Bucks School District. They were adopting a new science textbook,
Uh-huh.
and there was an issue with people took issue with the chapters or sections about climate change.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Mhm, that's-
yeah, I remember that.
I think what I'd also like to, don't kill me, but
Whenever someone prefaces something.
no, but like,
That's pretty strong, isn't it?
well, no, but, I've worked in other districts where if you're going to adopt a textbook series, samples of those textbooks are on display for 30 days. We don't have a mechanism for that right now. But I do think that's probably something that's, not that a community member could come in and say, no, I don't want you to,
No, but they could raise this.
But they could.
Yeah.
Right, but I think, but I also think it holds everybody accountable for vetting resources.
Well, I think that's a good thing.
Reuse.
But like I said, I don't want to get in
Yeah.
the way of allowing course materials to change
Sure.
rapidly.
Well, no, so, for instance, let's say that we're going to create a course for next year. Before we would even bring the books to the board to approve, they would go on display.
They used to back here.
Yeah, but that has happened in the
Right,
past.
and so like, when the board would approve the purchase of the textbooks, it would have already been through its, public display.
Yeah. When things are happening proactively, I think that's definitely a best
Mhm.
practice,
Mhm.
but I wouldn't want to make that a requirement.
It sounds like, what I think I'm hearing is you want, there's the instructional resource that is the primary content for the course, and you want to improve that. But everything else that the teacher or other person, instructor brings in ancillary to that, you don't require board approval. Is that fairly stated?
Right.
All right, so I just need to come up with a better definition for textbook to encompass
Yeah.
whatever else you're talking about. Does that make sense? All right, I can do that.
But there's that, and there's also the timing question, that, does it have to be, do things have to be pre-approved, or can they be adjusted later?
Well, I think the idea behind pre-approval probably originally was, it's probably somewhat about content, but I think it was also about, like, before you invest all this money in textbooks,
Well,
or
sure,
order a bunch of
yeah.
textbooks, it's gonna cost a ton of money. Board should approve it. It's almost as much of a budgetary item.
Definitely, that makes perfect sense in the budgetary range. And if, there's a big non-budget, the rapidly changing curriculum thing isn't going to happen in a big money kind of way.
Sure.
Because
Right,
it's not
if-
budgeted.
And the way we've started doing textbooks now, we're piloting before we buy
Right.
them. So, like, for example, Fontes of Vanilla Classroom or Illustrative Math, right now they're in pilot. So before we make that big expenditure, the board formally adopts that resource as sort of the seminal resource for the course, we've had a lot of interaction with it.
Okay.
So, but you're right to point out there's both the content and the financial component here.
All right, active drawing board.
Will there be an AR?
Probably, that's.
Yeah,
Seems
well,
to
let's
me
figure
that
out-
this
I mean,
would
this
be-
is, yeah,
You'd really want an AR.
right. And just, there is 108 too, which is curriculum materials.
Maybe that's one thing. I didn't know there was something.
Something,
Allowed for.
something, well, curriculum materials includes textbooks, typically.
Why don't I take a look at that one and work with Ken?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think if we, because we, especially if we're using the word curriculum materials, we need to make sure that we don't have to. All right, so this is going back.
Yeah, this goes into the selection process.
Right, that's my thing, review with 108. Okay, so we're just taking it off.
We're not going to be anywhere near
This
legislative
reads
next
like
one.
it was
Or this
taken
one.
from somewhere else.
Yeah, and we did 108 a couple of years ago.
So we have 26. You have to take repeal of 110 off.
Thank you. We need to keep 110 on,
Just
since
keep
we're
it-
not ready yet.
Yeah, just keep it
Okay.
on the agenda as for the repeal. Repeat first read.
So repeat.
So it's 110 is repeat first read.
Yeah. Repeat repeal.
And 109, not going to be.
It's not going to be on now. We're going to look back at that. Okay. All right. So 112.
All right, so last night I added the purpose and the authority statement.
Yeah.
Other than that, I did not make any substantive changes.
In your purpose, did you want to add a word like the board adopts this policy so our guidance and counseling services are equitably available? Available. It just sounds a little, to say it's available.
Available and equitable.
There's something.
Or equitable guidance and counseling services are available.
Mhm. So available doesn't mean it's,
Also in the definition, Mr. People changes to
okay, so
the end of the guidance.
The last word.
portion, yeah. Vocational, that word still being used in the definition instead of, yeah. Interesting.
Where
Well,
else?
it's for more than just, I mean, it's more than just students who attend a
Mhm.
vocational school.
All right, is there anything? 112 then?
We just have to add the PA school code.
Right, which I
Yeah.
think is,
I put that just in a minor data.
In the delegation of authorities, if you want to say superintendent designates director of implementing guidance program that serves the needs of all students,
Where
we're good with just students.
Other end.
Yep.
Why is that referenced? Okay, so Lisa. Alright, so we'll do school code and guidances. Alright,
Oh, here it is.
yeah, the one at the bottom isn't the right one.
Yeah. Oh, it isn't the right
No, it goes, it's specific to vocational stuff, it's not,
one?
yeah, it's not part of this,
Got it.
yeah. That's why I clicked on that, it doesn't make sense, so,
Thank you.
okay, yeah. All right, are we good with 12, 112 or not?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so second read. We'll go to 115.
I have a question for maybe Steve and Art. It says under authority, there's a big paragraph in the middle, it says in order to maintain a program of career. See that paragraph? It says the board shall, in cooperation with Eastern Center of Art and Technology, establish a number of credits. Is that how it works? Like the board in conjunction with Eastern sets that? Is that how they do it? Okay. Like I don't, as a board, remember working with Eastern to.
It probably hasn't been reviewed in a long time. If I were to say, I want to change graduation requirements, or if Kathleen decides over at Eastern to change graduation requirements, that has to come back for a board vote. It's not something that happens often.
Okay.
Art, are you comfortable with the way this is written? I mean, we specifically speak about Eastern because
I think it's
Eastern
appropriate.
is the,
It's
Yeah,
all placed authority.
although students can go elsewhere if there's a program at Eastern and it's not being offered that the student wants to go to. So,
yeah, I don't know that.
every now and then we'll get a kid out of this area going to Eastern. It's a program that we offer and their school does not.
But you're not doing that, you're not going there by board policy, they're going there
No.
because their school code lets them go there. This is just your board policy and how you're going to work with your primary, the career tech center that you're primarily engaged with.
Yeah, in the delegation of authority, I think the word vocational should be taken out wherever it is.
Career and technical education.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw that.
Instead of location.
Yeah, I saw
In the first bullet also,
12.41.
Yeah, where it is, yeah.
or the only bullet.
It's 22, 3, 12.
Only number one.
Got it. Thank you.
And the same in the last paragraph.
Yeah, I saw that, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, anywhere where.
And then I saw one parents without guardians, so I
Yeah.
added that.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, it's broad enough that it's.
Okay. We're good with 115? Go to homebound instruction 117.
There are two sort of structural comments on this one.
Sure.
One is in what's now the purpose, says who meets criteria set forth in this policy. There are no criteria set forth in this
I know,
policy.
I'm going to suggest that we put some, I'm going to suggest that we
I
put
like
some
that.
of the criteria in the policy.
Yeah, and then,
Or would you say that?
Oh, there's a form.
Administrative
Oh,
regulation.
yeah, we could do that.
yeah, it works too. There's a form at the bottom attached to this, but there's no reference to that form.
We can put that with the AR.
It probably belongs with the
Should
AR.
go with the AR.
All right, so let's look
Look at
at
that, Kate, you saved us all kinds of time.
That was good.
And as it turns out, you've already provided the guidelines with the AR.
Mhm.
You think you referenced the form somewhere in the AR?
It's still okay for,
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see any reference to the form in here either. I didn't actually look at the form and see what it was.
It's literally just.
Oh, no, there it is. It's under guidelines. Shall complete the attached form link here.
So you're looking at? Just need to change this to
Change the link here, link to the
Link it on the AR.
And just a reminder, a project that I have for this coming summer, all of the forms that are attached here, we're going to make them all electronic instead of to
Yeah.
print them out in hard copy forms we got.
It's still like 5 years ago.
And to say up and down the school district.
Mm.
Right, yes.
So there were a bunch of, let me just check my previous comments.
you saying the policy was just.
I'm on the AR now.
Don't go, 'cause you're gonna get-
Sorry.
Okay, yeah, so there's just one comment I made last time that didn't get caught here. So under delegation of responsibility, near the top, it says students who are eligible for homebound instruction will be approved. It's not, we're not approving the students, we're approving the instruction. So instruction, homebound instruction for eligible students
Yes.
will be approved. Oh, I see, it sort of got fixed for eligible.
For
students.
eligible, yeah.
Students who are,
Eligible
now we have
will be
eligible
approved.
twice.
Yeah, it's just,
Oh,
it
just
just,
adding,
Oh,
It
drop
just-
the first 4 words. Homebound instruction,
First 5 words.
Right.
homebound instruction will be approved for eligible students.
yeah, so it just drops
I
students
think that's
who
what we
are
meant to
eligible
do.
for.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
what-
it just didn't get deleted, that's
Yeah,
all.
that's all.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I don't think the I needs to be capitalized. It's not a term of art. None of this affects the status of the second.
No. Okay. All right. So we're good with 117 with those minor changes. All right, so that moves us to 127. here?
All my comments from last time. I
Yeah.
covered.
Nice one, please.
Where?
At the very beginning, we crossed out the word "to."
Oh, yeah, there's some missing.
Let me
There's a
see.
missing word in the
Keep
first
the word
sentence.
It's responsibility, yeah, to implement.
Quick question. So, under authority, it says the district shall grant requests by parents or guardians to review state assessment.
She's looking at that.
Up above, under authority, it says, adopted academic standards and state assessment. No. So, here it is. The board reserves the right to review district assessment measures. But then the next two are about state assessment measures. Are there separate district, is this really meant to just be about state assessment measures, or is this all assessment
Could
measures?
be all assessment.
Well, but the 2 week things for the state.
Just with
And then, that's the follow-up question. So, but those two paragraphs are really just about the state assessments.
the last two paragraphs.
Under authority.
Yeah.
Or just about state assessments.
Yes. Although you do want to make sure there's a policy someplace that lets them make a religious objection to
We have, yeah.
other assessments, which I believe we have a different policy.
Why can't I look that up? Under delegation of responsibility, first paragraph. The superintendent shall recommend methods of assessment based on his or her professional judgment. In other places where we ask the superintendent designate to make recommendations, we're not.
So we're not like basic, you don't have to use your judgment in those situations, just in this one.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty fun though.
I think the goal there was to make sure that there was staff input. I think that's what,
So the superintendent designee shall incorporate staff input into the recommendations for methods of assessment and evaluation.
that's fine.
And is that an AR statement or a policy statement?
That to me was an AR.
Is that the board saying that, or is that the superintendent saying
That, you tell us.
that? Right.
Well, the contract with teachers has the IPD process.
In accordance, so, something in accordance with.
So we could say the superintendent shall recommend methods of assessment and evaluation based upon staff input.
In accordance with that.
Yeah.
Incorporate staff input in accordance with
Yeah.
whatever the appropriate phrase is for the contract.
Incorporating staff input in accordance with the IPD process.
You want to just say in accordance with the contract? In case the.
No, in case IPD comes out of it at some point.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll just say, how about in accordance with the applicable process?
Yeah.
So, Ken, going back to authority, where we're saying the district should request by parents or guardians to review the state assessments 2 weeks prior. What do they actually get to see?
They actually get to see the test.
To see it.
Wow.
You can't
Before
take-
the test
Yeah,
is,
you can't take.
They can't take pictures, can't take notes. They have to be within.
wow.
Okay. We should get that right. So did you?
I wrote it down.
So you wrote down
And that's a state-
evaluation.
that's a
state
state
law.
requirement.
Staff
Yeah.
was the applicable processes required by contract or otherwise.
Yep, in accordance with applicable processes. No?
Incorporating staff input, found in accordance with applicable processes required by contract or otherwise.
We crossed out so that parents can make informed decisions. So now it just says the district will provide information and programs about the assessments. To whom? Do we even need that sentence?
Where are you?
So,
So it's-
the delegation of responsibility where we crossed out so the parents can make informed decisions. Third paragraph. So now it just says the district will provide information and programs about the assessments. Doesn't say to whom or for what purpose, and I'm wondering whether we need that at all.
Why do we need that?
Principals will send letters to parents, guardians, informing them about the state assessments at the beginning of the school year and then at least 2 weeks prior to the administration.
Right, and then the next sentence is, who are we providing information to?
What do you mean by programs too?
I don't know.
I think this whole sentence previously was about.
Let's just take that whole sentence.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
The whole last sentence?
Yes.
Yep. So, I mean, that
The district. All right, we good with that then?
Yeah.
Is the very last sentence, in there, the district shall provide assistance to students not attaining academic standards at the proficient level. Is that what we're permitting? Yeah, okay. All right.
No. And we're required to do that.
Mhm.
I don't think,
That's the reference.
okay. 142.
This is really only about migratory and agricultural workers? Other migrants with other visa types don't qualify for this?
I looked at several other districts at their policies. They all reference migratory agricultural workers. No other ones are.
Yeah.
I think that's what the federal regulation is.
Yeah, it is really that
This refers
narrowly
to their agriculture.
defined, we should
Yeah.
agree with that, but it just,
I
that's
think
a
it does.
surprise to me.
I'm
Mhm.
sure it is.
Yep.
Yeah, I checked some of our other districts just to see if our policy was too narrowly focused or not.
That's it.
That's what it is, yeah. We just, so you got that many in the state.
Okay.
Yeah, so, yeah.
Dairy, fish.
It is kind of surprising though, Mark, to have,
I'd say it's bizarre, but.
Do we have any?
Agricultural workers here in Devon, there are a few goats.
Now, we should say.
Huh?
Kids, not child.
Kids.
Yeah, we should put a site in here about essentially why we're,
what was that?
maybe put a site in here that we're doing this pursuant to, I mean, at the bottom of the tab or something like that.
It's sort of said in the authority.
Yeah, no, but I'm just, we have a site in there, just to have a site in there too, at the bottom of it,
Oh, yeah.
that's all.
Yeah.
So people can
Just in case.
answer the question that we just had, like, what? Why is there a policy about migratory agricultural workers' children?
Well, we do say that we have the authority to accordance with the area
Yeah.
660
Yeah, she-
No, no.
Okay, have
A link,
to it.
essentially, just a
Yeah,
link to the bottom, that's all I'm
right,
saying,
right,
just
right.
add a link to do it.
And then in guidelines, in number 7, we just say migratory.
Well, we define migratory.
Okay, so we've defined
Yeah,
it.
we've defined it.
Okay, that's true. Yeah. As agricultural, okay.
That's it. Okay.
Yep.
All right, good. So,
So we refer to that.
one more, that's 143.
I added a definition of persistently dangerous school.
Hmm.
That's right from PD.
Right, that makes sense, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we have an AR with this, but that is not on the list.
You want to put the definition in the policy or in the AR so that we can, when those numbers get updated, if it's going to get updated, we actually have it updated.
Yeah, there is an AR, it has the same definition.
I don't think, I think in this case, we'll probably never see this policy, I mean, no one will ever look at this policy, but I hope you're right.
Yeah.
Implementation's messed up.
Typically, we would include a definition like that in an AR.
Yeah.
Because
And-
it could be updated by law, by
Right.
statute.
It is in the AR, but
Or,
since
I'm not seeing it.
it's not in the packet, but on the website, we do have an AR.
We'll add that to the AR too.
Yeah. So,
It has a bunch of definitions. It's essentially what the AR
Kids
is.
in
A lot of
persistently
definitions on
dangerous
that.
schools as defined in the administrative regulation. Find an AR, take out the definition. Get that from.
I know. It's the second reading cycle time. All right, are we good to move on to? All right.
All right, so, let's see, 004.
You want to do that one versus 000?
Oh, I'm sorry, 000, sorry. I'm jumping in. The change is just because we merged 3s, 4s, and 5s together.
Perfect, easy. No objection?
Yeah.
All right.
I don't even think that requires a,
No?
I think you just make that change.
Okay.
You just note it.
We'll just change the
note it
review
in the
date.
report to the board.
Okay.
I just have under distribution, says an updated policy manual electronic form shall also be provided, but it doesn't say that any other form shall be provided.
So just say shall be provided. Back in the day, board members used to get the big
Yeah.
binder.
We all have them.
Still
Yeah,
have them.
we still have them. We all got them.
Why do you still have it? That's the question.
No.
It's
Takes a lot to shred.
Something has to collect the dust.
And then we would get the changes,
Having an updated book is worse than having
It
it.
just sits there on the shelf.
and then you get the revisions of the new policies, and you're supposed to put them in the book.
Yeah, there are different page colors in there.
Oh my gosh. This is better. It's
I used
better.
to, look, that's how these things are.
Yeah.
All right, 004.1, student representative to the school board. I struck some language about
Yeah.
student association. I spoke with the kids and I spoke with the student government advisors.
Good.
And got their input, so.
All right, that's good.
So I think we're going with the convention of saying, do we say chosen by their peers?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
What paragraph is that in?
That is under election of process.
I captured it here.
Expected to use good judgment.
Well, I like that though, because it takes out the other part. You're never allowed to say anything bad. Like, it's usually why you talk, it gives them something negatively to say. All right.
So you're saying
the
committee
council's
meetings-
okay with that? They think that, you guys think it's gonna scream sense?
What's that? You're saying that there also are committee meetings.
They
No,
can
it
just
says-
come,
They can come to,
They
he
can.
can, yeah, he can.
Yeah.
I can't be appointed to it.
Right.
right, but they can sit at one of our
Attend and be
meetings.
seated with board members publicly.
Yeah,
instead of-
They can sit here with us.
The committee meetings.
Okay.
Daniel's so busy typically that
Right.
even legislative meetings, sometimes he.
Yeah.
Around
I really wish we could get,
We excuse them.
I mean, I only remember once in my time, a student really participating
Yeah,
in any discussion. I wish
Oh,
we
yeah.
had more.
I know.
Jacobson. It's free time.
You're right.
Hmm?
Okay. All right.
Great job.
101? Can we move on to 101? Take out his herb up there.
Is it very unique?
Mhm.
I think we're fine with that one.
Yeah, I'm fine with it, but we got that to mark. Looks good. You good with that?
District slogan, huh?
I know.
Well, I put that in there because we adopted it with the strategic action
Right.
plan, so I thought, might as well put it in there.
That makes sense. Since we use it. Okay, that's good. All right, I think we're good with it, but we'll just, I'll say first reading and, oh,
Sorry.
it's okay. We're just, Gloucester Education, we added the slogan. Not that we, the slogan was added to the, not that we didn't do. That's too.
Just do it.
We have a district.
We do, because it was done through the strategic action.
Empowerment for educational excellence.
Yeah,
Oh, okay,
that's what we have it now.
okay.
It's our new thing.
Oh, yeah, there's the one.
I'm getting you a t-shirt with it on it.
Thank you. Okay.
All right, good, first reading. All right,
Here we go.
next one, 16.
I did do it.
Do we need the word special, require special help being
No.
Good question.
I've
I
learned
don't
something
like help
from you.
either. I'm gonna put assistance.
Further down, it says extra help. In certain cases where extra help is desirable.
Extraordinary to, let's see. Special, this has a connotation.
Yeah.
How about if we say extra assistance?
Outside.
Why, we already said beyond the regular classroom.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly, that
Yeah,
gives you
okay,
the,
Yep. Sorry.
So what this is suggesting is that at times, the district will recommend that the parents secure outside assistance for their students, right?
What's that?
I thought we had to provide names. but maybe not.
We talked about not maintaining a list of tutors.
Right.
So
Used to be.
I don't understand the second paragraph under guidelines. It says, in cases where extra help is desirable and the parents request such assistance, the building principal may recommend that they do so.
Maybe some kids don't need it, and parents just ask, well, we should get a tutor, like, yeah, your kid doesn't need it, and then we don't have to give the list.
Well, we don't have a list
I know.
anyway.
No, we don't recommend.
I'm not sure,
tutoring
I guess I
services.
don't understand the point of this. If the parents want it, we have nothing to say about it, right? They can do whatever they want. If this, so I think this is all really about where the district is making a recommendation before the parents even ask. I think isn't that the point of this policy? Where the district believes that the student could benefit from outside assistance.
I don't know, but if we do, then don't we have an obligation to
Yeah,
provide it?
that was my follow-up, yes.
So I think this is where it's the opposite, it's where the parents come in and say, hey, we want to get our kids some tutoring services, and we say,
So why do we need a policy at all?
could benefit, but they're not required.
Well, because we have a provision for excusal from school.
I think that's under the attendance policy. Our attendance policy says that we will excuse
Right.
students.
So can we repeal this entire
You know,
policy then?
I think you should.
Okay, nice, that's even better.
So first repeal.
Reading,
Especially because we don't want to have to
Sure,
have you approving there.
right. No, I have a whole host of notes on that.
Steve, remind me in the conflict of interest policy, a teacher or staff member tutoring a student for compensation now is a conflict of interest regardless of his student or her student?
You can't tutor a kid that you have as an active student.
unless you.
Okay, but that's,
you are-
we're eliminating this, but I thought that's what it's, okay.
Because
Well,
it's
yeah,
extraordinary
there is an
there is-
exception.
We gave the exception because it's like the extraordinary circumstance where this
Like
is
the kid
the
that
only
needs Wilson
possible.
or Warren Gillingham, and we have one or two teachers.
Yeah, and he authorizes it, so. The superintendent.
I remember because we had,
We had a robust discussion.
Yes.
We did.
Is that a nice way to put that?
Mhm.
Robust.
All right, so that's repealing, great, we're done with that, 210.
There are suggestions that were provided today. I have them on paper.
Oh, from
Yeah.
Michelle.
Okay.
Can we go, do you want to pass them out?
Yeah, do you want to, can you?
Could you
Yeah.
pass them around the table?
Okay, good, 'cause, yeah, there's nothing on there.
There's
So
two
the-
documents here.
Yeah,
so-
just pass.
So it's gonna be both, probably use minutes and allergies.
Oh, you don't have to close it. Thank you.
Mr. Rios.
Thank you.
Just pass it out.
You just need to do that.
Thank you.
Just hang on. Thank you.
You're welcome. And I'll take one for myself.
All right.
There's a lot.
This is, so Michelle Clegg, our Director of Pupil Services, Student Services, whatever we call it, sent in some,
Yes, some is from high school, some is
Changes.
from middle school. Sorry, I received them this morning, that's wrong.
no worries.
That's why they're on separate papers.
It's-
Give it back. Do you want us to just incorporate these and bring this back since
Yeah.
there's got to be a.
Why don't we do that? Because
There's
there's no
no-
reason for us to go through it, yeah,
there's
so.
too much here.
So what we can do, and is this for both of them? Yeah. This is both for use of medication and allergies, both with set of policy and AR.
Yep.
So that, let's say Clegg
Wow.
sent in edits
Yep.
next meeting review. Okay. 231.1, policy and A. So we made the call, just for, Michelle Pike sent in edits to 210 and 210.2.
Yes.
So we made the decision to have these looked at and brought forward next meeting because there's
Perfect.
too much to
Yep.
kind of try to figure out. Okay,
Agreed, we just got that.
this, right, exactly, we just got those this morning, so that makes sense. So, okay, so with that, then we're move to 231.1, celebration of holidays, it's both a policy and an administrative regulation.
So the reason this came up, there was some concern over the last year, especially as we get into the winter holiday season, that some of our music concerts toe a tight line, and also that when kids are learning about traditions and how different countries and groups of people celebrate holidays, that there was some concern that it broached talking too much about religion. So I did not change much to the policy. I did put in, and this was with our Ed Leaders group, we looked at the administrative guidelines for the study of religion and also the celebration of holidays. And the numbering is kind of weird on this, so we'll clean that up.
I have a question about policy language in general. So in the policy under what's now the authority section, the last sentence says, this policy supersedes any other district policy that's inconsistent with it. Is that a thing we can really put in an individual policy? This one trumps all others?
I think the point there is to make sure we're not like violating the Constitution.
Right, but the Constitution is always going to trump whether we write the policy. So,
Well, I guess it's true. I'm trying to think of why in 2003 somebody probably put that in there. No, you don't really need to put that in there.
Take it out.
But you're already saying it's your policy not to prevent or deny participation.
yeah.
You wouldn't really.
I mean, all policies have to be, like, if they're inconsistent with each other, there has to be an adjudication process one way or another. Like, it's not that one can necessarily win over another automatically, never, right?
Correct. Could just as easily have said this policy supersedes any policy that violates the U.S. Constitution.
Yeah.
No.
Just as,
Yeah.
It's not going to protect you in court if you violate anything, right?
So what do we know, right, the study of religious holidays may be included in elementary, secondary curricula. Do we know how they're included, or if they're included currently in like the elementary curricula?
So they are, wait, I'm sorry, are you on the policy?
I'm in the policy, I'm sorry.
So yes, so in the elementary curriculum, in some of the new social studies curriculum, it's now embedded.
snowflakes are,
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
You would be surprised by the calls I got last year from the day we came back from Thanksgiving through the winter break about snowflakes, snowmen, reindeer, yeah.
Snowflakes. I mean,
Yeah, exactly. All three of those do.
Symbol of religious holidays.
Well, reindeer I can get, but
I
the
get the
snowflake, yeah, I get reindeer. But snowflake I don't get. But I'm not saying it didn't have some religious connotation at some point.
So, under religious music, the study of music with religious themes is permitted as long as it serves a sound educational goal. Okay, school concerts, because our concerts typically do have music, often from multiple religions. But just as they may, so I guess that overrides that. Okay, so students may be dismissed, second last paragraph, students may be dismissed to off-premises for religious instruction. You express approval. This is under the religious music or school concert section. Is this really a general statement?
It's
or
a
is it
general
specific
statement, it needs to be moved.
Okay.
How about we say religious services or instruction at the last?
Express.
Off school premises, we should add that.
Express.
Premises.
Yeah, not the local.
Not the local.
So, because this is.
So, yeah,
Why wouldn't we just include this in a broader religion in the schools policy?
We can certainly do that. This was,
It's what you had, I mean,
Right.
with the existing, and I think this is probably, if you deal with this as a section in a larger policy on religion in schools, I think it'll keep you from bouncing around and also keep there from being inconsistencies.
Yeah.
so next month we'll bring this back as,
Yeah, I can,
Yeah, I like that idea.
I did too. Yeah, I think one of the things that I'm aware
I've
of
got some samples that you can, so we're not reinventing the wheel here.
is that I know that some teachers, at least in elementary school, invite parents to come in and share information about their religion. And it's done at least without the knowledge, at least ahead of time, of parents. So there's no
Right.
ability to
Right.
opt out.
Years ago, and it never went anywhere, so.
Yeah.
So that's one of the interesting things that I know I've had some.
2007.
right, it sort of crosses.
Right, because it's not in the curriculum. Like, it's one thing when you're, the teacher's talking about it, stuff like that. It's another thing when a parent is coming in invited without any guidelines or things, and they talk about their religion and their beliefs and things like that. And then also usually hand out some type of candy to the children. And I think one of the concerns I know I have had as a parent has been, I hadn't even know this is happening until my kid comes in and starts talking about something in our household
Right.
that was like, where did you hear about this?
Exactly, and that's,
School? That was like, wow, I had no understanding of it, and it wasn't done by the teacher.
right, it was done by,
So-
right. So Ken and I were just having a side note, we don't have a religion policy.
Okay.
We're going to, I'll work with Ken, part of a more global policy, but the whole point, and I know we're not going to approve it, but if you look at the AR,
Yeah.
the AR, specifically when I spoke with our ed leaders, we refer to the district, its employees, and volunteers as a way to sort of put some guidelines in place so that people at least know there's a boundary.
Right.
When that happened in our elementary school experience, it was pretty clear that it was to be about our traditions.
Yeah.
Not about religions, which is a fine line, but.
But I think that's also something, and I've spoken with the principals about well in advance of the
Right.
holiday season coming up, put out a communication to,
Right, because I think one of the things is I think it'd be really interesting for, kids to get, depending on what classroom they get different experiences too. And that's the thing, is that if you have a classroom that has a family that's like Hindi, like that's a really different experience and more information that I wish all of the kids would get, right? Versus the same thing that, some of the kids get. And so there's just a lot more diversity when it comes to religion and cultural, practices that I think that would be beneficial to kids, but it's being delivered by a person that's in education.
and that's also why we started to put it in the elementary social studies
And I think that's beautiful. I think that's, and that's where it should go. I think it's important to teach, and it should go into part of the official program that we have, and not,
And it gives us good content to teach kids.
yeah, exactly. So,
You'll tend to get less in trouble with it if you teach it at a time of year when it's not
Yeah.
proximate to the holiday.
and I think that's a good thing, because I think that's what, typically, that's not what's
Right.
happening. That's when you start kind of coming in, and
A
it's like,
snowflake in March means something different than a snowflake in December.
yes. Or other things that the kids get during the holidays. You're like, wow, I'm learning something new. Okay, all right, so you're gonna bring, so we'll be bringing that
A
back,
revision
and that'll be a
policy.
whole different, that'll encompass all the things we just, okay. All right, so next is 707 access.
My favorite policy.
Oh, it is, all of ours, I think.
So I put this in here because, and I'm not sure how much we want to talk about it today. I do think there's widespread misunderstanding about this policy, and it has to be cleaned up. There's sloppy language in the policy and in the AR to some extent, and I'll explain why. If you look at the policy, in the 1, 2, 3, 4, the fifth line down, it starts with the phrase community groups, right? So people were reading community groups one way, but the AR defines it in a very different way. So I think we need to be more linear
Yes.
and more consistent with the way that we're using language in
Yeah, definitions are
policy.
good.
Yeah.
Good, consistent definitions.
Yeah, well, as I said in that email I sent to Frank that I copied you on, where it says that in purpose, community group shall be permitted, that's, as a purpose statement,
Mhm.
like, okay, generally that's what we're trying to achieve, but the specifics are really elsewhere in the document.
Exactly.
They're not actually.
Right, and I think that's what contributed to
Exactly,
the
yeah.
multiple misunderstandings.
Yeah.
So, what I would like to do, and I'm happy to, we can talk about the policy in the AR as it is, but we're also going to be attaching, there's a memorandum of understanding for Spark, there's a memorandum of understanding for Cardinal Stadium, and there will be we're finalizing a memorandum of understanding for the Aplex. So I'd like to attach all of those
I think that's a great idea.
ultimately to this policy, because it really, all those things articulate how those spaces are going to be used. And we're also going to need an MOU for the new field that is to come at Sandy Run, because once we have an artificial surface over there, people
Yeah.
want to use
The
that.
soccer club wants to use that, yeah.
So that would be to the policy or to the AR?
AR.
To the
AR, sorry.
AR, okay.
I think in terms of the AR, the biggest thing that people wanted to take me to task for was 2F, the statement that says prior history of the user's conduct and management of the facilities and whether the application bumps another user that historically used the space.
Right.
I think we have to either decide, is that in or out? And what are the ramifications of having that remain, and what are the ramifications of that coming out?
You want to have that discussion now? Is that what you're saying? We're gonna have it?
Yeah,
So, I think the part of the point of having something like that in there is to avoid some radical change. So the change should either be negotiated or phased in over time, or, something. I think that's what we're trying to achieve with that. And there's probably a better way to say it. So I do think that should be criteria that is considered, but there's no why it should be considered articulated here.
Right, yeah, I mean, I think it's important, because I think that when we look at the criteria, they're all, you consider all of those items. You didn't stop
Yeah.
it after one or another, you considered all of them in context. And I think that, I agree with Mark, that we can clean it up so it makes sense. It's like, it's important for people to have expectations.
Right.
And I think that's the thing, is that especially, we're dealing with community groups here, and people have certain expectations, and they've done programs around it and things like that, that if we're gonna make changes, that's something that we have to be able to consider versus,
Right.
you know, because,
And And I think, I'm sorry.
no,
And I think having the various memorandums, you know,
Yeah,
will help. Because that
absolutely.
really spells out who, what, when, where, and why.
right. And I think we just didn't have one with the Apex before because there was no competition in,
Right.
in the use of the space. So clearly, we've had them in the other places because we
There's-
had to
right.
consider that.
And that's why proactively, we're looking at the artificial surface field at Sandy Run, because we know once that's, I mean, everyone's
Yeah.
going to want
Yep.
time on that,
Right,
time on that field.
that makes sense. So,
There was also some, in the AR, it talks about class 1, class 2, class 3, class 4. I looked at some other school districts, and they sort of blend class 1 and class 2. I don't know if that helps or hurts us in terms of public perception. It was Haverhill Portions, I believe. Their class 1 and class 2 is just one group.
So one of the things I really wrestled with when we were looking at Sandy Run design questions was, to what extent we as a school district are responsible for providing resources to community groups who are not related to our, directly related to our education mission. And I ended up concluding that there is an appropriate time and place for us to consider those uses of our facilities, even if they're not educational. But if it's not core mission, like our core mission can't be decompromised.
Right.
So separating these to me makes sense because that's to me the difference between these two things. The class 1 is core mission and class 2 is community.
Unless you have a group like UDAC that many people believe
Right.
UDAC is core mission.
I think for me, core mission
Well,
is like,
well,
yeah,
I'm using
I
the
know.
present terms.
right. And I think for me,
Well, no,
the core
no.
mission is academic, right? If we're talking about kids going in and studying in these places and doing it for a specific purpose, once you start, and this is just my opinion, going into the extracurriculars, regardless if it's based in a community or the school, providing, you know, sports or whatever, then to me, those group together in a lot of ways. It's we are the only ones that can provide the certain services. So like, for me, it's when it comes down to like the planetarium or Robbins Park, things that are gonna be used for educational purposes, that's a different classification in my mind. I mean, this is just my opinion.
Right, you're making a judgment call that
Yeah.
athletics and other extracurricular activities are not, use the word academic.
Right, that's, right, I mean, and I'm not saying they're not important, but
Yeah.
like, the most important thing is, it's really the academic, that kind of learning component to it. The other ones are very important too, it's just,
Right, and I make a similar judgment, and I think
yeah.
we can clarify that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree with you, I'm not disagreeing
Yeah.
with you at all. I think what, around the recent issue that we've had, there were no shortages of opinions about what should happen.
Yeah.
And then there were also a whole host of unwritten agreements that were made.
Right. Well, and I mean, I think part of the fact that we had within this, you know, point 2 and having A through F in there, I think it was important because I think F helped us in the context of what, you know, what the intentions were, right? Like, it was, the fact that F existed was what the board intended it to be when we signed up other other sports teams, because it wasn't, our intention never was to, this is gonna supersede that. That was never the intention, and that's what F in there was able to say, right.
Agreed.
I mean, we can always you can make changes to it and say, hey, you know what, yeah, things change and we wanna do that now. But, I mean, that's why I think it's important to have something like F in there, and I think that, you know, I'm comfortable changing, classifications to things to, you know, be what I think, you know, but,
Just a suggestion on what I've seen other districts do. usually, you do it by virtue of who you don't, I hear what you're saying about corporate facilities. Corporate facilities are student organizations, and then the organizations that benefit Upper Dublin residents as Upper Dublin School District students.
Right.
So that would be, student organizations would be number one. You never want the Upper Dublin Soccer Club to bump the middle school game, for example. Similarly, when you've got PTO functions that are serving as PTO, serving on behalf of your students, question as to whether you would ever want them to be bumped by some other organization, some other, private organization. Or
Right,
some-
Girl Scouts.
Girl Scouts.
Right.
Although I think there is a Girl Scout. Well, I don't know why township organizations, to me, means Upper Dublin Soccer Club, UDJAA, all these other places. Since they might be their own separate category, but they wouldn't be in number one. They would be in number two. So I don't know why, I'm not sure why township organizations is in number one. Montgomery County Board of Elections doesn't need to be in there at all, because
That was interesting.
they get use of your facilities by statute.
Right.
And you don't want to, I wouldn't suggest that you would want to entitle them to any more than they get under statute. Because what if because everything you're doing in here is creating an entitlement on somebody. So you want to be very strategic about what entitlements you create. So it's like, okay, who's first on the list? Yeah, if our student organizations need it, our student teams need it, or the district needs it, we're number one. Number two, it'd be this person. Number three, I see districts with 7 or 8 categories.
Yeah, the advantage to putting down fine details like that is that hopefully everyone can read that and just know the answer, and you don't have to have these discussions ever. The disadvantage to putting them all down is you're going to be wrong sometimes, but I'm obligated to follow it.
But I do agree, Ken, that we should put, like, the township in another
Yeah, I'm not
category.
I'm not sure what we meant by putting them there.
That's bizarre,
Like, what?
because it really ain't class two.
I'm looking up what we were doing, thinking of us in 2016, and I can't find it.
Right, so number one should be school organizations.
Well, I think what we meant was it's in the text. At the very end of
Exactly.
that first one, it says,
Yeah.
township meetings for the purposes of accomplishing township business. So if the township is going to have a commissioners meeting that's going to attract 800 people,
Right, they want to use our,
they get to use the auditorium.
And
I
they
think
bump-
that's what it means.
Yes.
What if it's back to school night?
Yeah.
So that's 2 class 1 things, wanting the space at the same time.
Mhm.
it's 2F.
Well, no, back to school night is a district function, it's not a student organization function, it's not a.
That's true. Okay.
Yeah, it's a
So
district.
that's a class
That's a
0.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just trying, I hear what you're saying, they need to use it for a meeting.
I'm guessing that's what we're trying to achieve. I'm not agreeing that we should be trying to achieve that, I just think that's why it's.
That's why it was in there, and I don't think we need to have it in there.
I'm just trying to think of when they would ever conflict with
Right.
a student. Why can't they be the class two? Instead, why do they?
I don't see a reason. Yeah.
Well, I think because we want them to trump UDJ, I'm guessing because whoever wrote this,
UDJ was-
we want them to trump UDJ.
Well, then that's,
So maybe maybe there is more than 4 classes.
I don't know what the affiliation is between UDJA and a township organization. Are they a township organization, or are they?
No, I'm pretty sure they're completely independent.
No, it just
Well,
involves,
then they're already in class two.
UDJ is clearly
it's,
class 2.
yeah, it's literally listed as.
The question is, are the commissioners class 1, 2, or 1B?
There's an infinite number of numbers, so let's go with numbers.
1B.
2F.
I don't know, where do you fall on their policy? Should you be wherever they are? How often do they ask for your?
Have they ever? That we're aware of?
Yeah. So for recently, Langford flag presentation from one of the township committees.
Oh, right.
The auditorium.
Now, if we had a show in there going on that night, and they insisted on that night,
We trump it, because
We
we're
trump it.
Well, what if
class
it's,
zero.
what if it's a student, well, if
But
it's,
it's-
if the students are having, if there's a student organization,
Or what if it's the dance company? There's a dance company here in Upper Dublin, that's more than 75% of the residents, right? So when they have it, they're trying to book it for their dance show,
Could be political.
Right.
right?
Right.
Or recital.
Brooke just made a good point. In the full text, township organization. So I know, I don't want to start splitting hairs, but people can look at that and say, well, I don't care what the description says, but township organizations.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah, I know.
Right.
It's a terrible description, so I think.
Sloppy language, like we talked
Right.
about. There's-
If it doesn't necessarily comport with everything else that's underneath of it,
I'm
so.
not sure what
which is why you make it a separate,
Mhm.
that's why you make it a separate classification.
Okay, so we need new classifications.
Especially if you're only talking about township meetings.
I'm
Okay,
not
before we
sure
get, are we
I don't know
good
what
with
we meant.
E26? Do we need to get rid of E26?
No, I'm just
township
based on
organizations?
Okay, I just want to make sure.
I think we mean, and I'm guessing, but, if the environmental, whatever that committee that had most of the spot of lantern fund in it, I think that's what we meant.
But if they want to have a fundraiser, they get to bump a PTO.
As written? Yeah.
No,
But
let's not talk about
but-
how, let's talk about how we want it to be, yeah.
Yeah.
And we can have as many as we want.
Which is why you don't initially want to just have 8 things and always follow it. You want to be able to have some judgment.
Right.
In there. Because I don't think you're going to be able to write, Ken, whether they're having a really important meeting or whether they're just having a bake sale.
But what's the criteria? I thought the idea here was you want to be able, you don't want to have to be calling balls and strikes when you've got 2 competing interests. I mean, you want to be able to point to something and say,
Yeah, but I think there's always going to be, we're going to have to sometimes call balls and strikes. I don't think it's realistic. I mean,
well, then.
prove me wrong. I'd love to be wrong about this, but I don't think it's realistic to correctly prioritize every possible use.
No, you can make groups co-equal.
And then you have to call
And
balls
then-
and strikes within there.
Right,
Well, but at least you list criteria for.
right, and then you have your criteria of how you
When
call.
2 Class 2 organizations want the
Right.
property at the same time, preference will be given based on the following criteria.
Who
asked
applied
for it
first?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's what
How
that's
many
what
people
these
are
bullet
expected to
points are.
attend either
The
event?
ability
Yeah.
of the district to find alternative space for
Right.
one of them.
Exactly.
Well, that's what this list did.
Right, and that's what the criteria does,
Yeah.
so we can,
They're back to where you were.
so. Do we want to change the classifications? I think we need to change some of them, at least some of the words.
Well, I agree, certainly we can cross off affordable action. Should cross off.
Why don't you give me a crack at,
Okay.
let me have a crack at it,
All
and then I'll,
Mhm.
and then everyone can dissect it and tell me I'm wrong.
That's a policy in a nutshell.
Hey, it beats having to write it by yourself.
I know. All right, so 707 is coming back. Write it down.
Forever.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But if we can
The
just,
goal is to be short of the transportation.
I only have one more policy committee meeting, so it'd be
Yes,
great if we
that
could do
would
it.
be good.
I think we'll get it done.
It is
You'll get
just here, facilities is the most studied policy in every single district. 2 years.
Doing facility use rates, 2 years. Every month.
We could be.
We'll do it in 1
2
month.
years, 1 month.
1 month. No, we can do it in 1 month. All right, the last one that's on our agenda is 826.
Did you see?
It's not nearly as fiery as 707.
When we haven't touched this since '03.
HIPAA was last.
Cordis is misspelled, missing L and authority. It's just hard to see in between.
It's in Providence.
I know.
The width is-
So I can tell you,
It's the way it is, right?
not making an excuse, but when you're in this policy system,
It's,
and you get all these different shades and everything, it really.
It does.
it's so
It
hard.
starts
Why do you
to
think
make
I would
your
get
eyes-
awkward?
I know. The answer, I'm like,
You're like, no, not now, now. I'm trying.
Do you
Also,
do you
yeah.
see those different shades?
What's that?
Do you see them?
I can see that they're shaded, I can't tell necessarily what color they are.
Down under guidelines, there's a spelling of HIPAA. Should be HIPAA.
Oh, it's HIPAA. It's HIPAA.
Accountability Act.
It's HIPAA.
I'm amazed that we can somehow manage to have a policy that says we'll comply with HIPAA in this little text. I mean, most of our policies that say we'll comply with some federal regulation are
It's
just,
very, very long, no, this is,
yeah.
this,
Accordance with the law.
This is a policy that only exists so that you can have a regulation to go with it.
Do we have a way to go with
So
it?
you can tell people how to comply as opposed to telling people that you will comply.
So we have.
do you have example regulations for that?
Yeah.
Yeah, because we don't have.
Yeah,
So we don't have one.
Okay, well, that's what we can do it for first
You
reading,
said the
and
only reason
then
is
need
to have one.
AR to be brought next meeting.
Okay.
Sample HIPAA, right? Did that to somebody once. They walked into my office with a question about HIPAA. They didn't even submit a paper and said, you have HIPAA spelled wrong. They looked at it.
Because you walk up to everybody.
Okay. Well, that's the agenda. That's pretty impressive. Because we have like 12 minutes remaining.
Oh, we can, let's finish that. episode.
That's right, no, we can just go next.
There were just a couple of items.
Oh,
at
there's
the
some
bottom.
repeals, right, I'm sorry, there's
I
there's
just wanted
the,
to discuss.
okay, yeah, we should. We're gonna repeal 508, employment contract, and renumbering the others since we're taking out the 4s and 5s, so.
We also had 106, we already resolved, and 106 and 110.
Right, exactly, that was up there. 110 is we're gonna do a repeat first read because we are still looking at the curriculum material, instruction materials, resource materials, so. But 106 will be a second. A second
That will be
repeal.
Yep.
Okay, so, we don't have any community members here for public input, any input, so with that, we'll
I'll just say, based upon the chart that I put together, April will be done with the book, will be
yeah.
done. And then what I've done is I've started, and I'll share at the next meeting, the cycle of when things come back up, so that we can stay on top.
That's great, yeah, so I think we started this process in May of 15 is when we started it. So that's 5 years. And if now we're on a tickler system essentially of review, that's
Yeah.
we're in a better place than we used to be. So
Celebration.
You don't realize how many policies there are. Do you?
I counted them one day and I was like, there's a lot.
Yeah.
So, all right, and there's anything else? All right, we're adjourned.